Today, a former McDonald's employee brokered peace in the Middle East. Man, not wrong. That was not on my bingo card, but the guy did it. I didn't think it could be done, but somehow President Trump did it, which means there are winners and there are losers. Hamas released the remaining living hostages today under a ceasefire deal, and Israel released some Palestinian prisoners. This video is not about celebration or outrage. It's about leverage, what changed, who gained leverage, who lost leverage, and what to watch for in the next 2 weeks. Military operations have been paused along agreed lines while these terms are being executed. That's kind of the operational picture as of Monday, October 13th. One more point here. A ceasefire is not a peace agreement. It is a management tool. It changes incentives. Those incentives are a scoreboard that I'm about to walk through. And quick note, there are more losers than winners in this whole thing. Before I get started, if you like my Intel Life t-shirt, grab one at Bunker Branding. Actually, this is a sweatshirt, not a t-shirt, but let's keep going here. Winner number one, the Israeli hostages and their families. This is kind of the ambiguous win. People are alive who would not be alive otherwise. This matters more than anyone's talking points, including mine, and everything else I would say is kind of secondary to this. Winner number two are the Palestinians, who were under the government of Hamas. A lot of people like to say that Palestinian people voted for Hamas, and they did that back in 2006. And they haven't had an election since. But at least now the terms of the peace agreement allow for the reconstruction of their state and perhaps an actual country. So that's kind of a win for the average people who just kind of want to live their lives and want nothing to do with Hamas. Winner number three is Egypt and Qatar. This is like regional leverage here. Egypt kind of preserves its gatekeeper role at Rafah, and there's going to be a lot of money to be made in reconstruction, especially stuff coming through the Rafah gate. Qatar kind of validates its talk to everyone foreign policy, although you could really call that working both sides. But right now, they kind of have a claim on shaping humanitarian access and what happens the day after with administrative architecture. They might even have a hand in reconstruction and maybe building a port, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to float humanitarian supplies and reconstruction supplies in than it would be to ship them in by truck. That influence is real. It exists. And it's going to kind of show up in whoever controls lists, routes, verification teams, and reconstruction teams. And that's it. There's really only like three winners here. So now let's get to the losers. Loser number one is Hamas. The hostages are coercive leverage. Surrendering the living ones kind of trade near-term survival and narrative for long-term bargaining power. Hamas is finished. They can still kind of message on this like prisoners for hostages success. The hard power picture, though, is degraded. They're fresh out of friends. Iran isn't around anymore. Nobody in the world likes them. They have degraded networks. Their tunnels are less effective. They don't really have as many pressure points as they did. If governance or demilitarization provisions really work in the next phase, the organization's freedom for action shrinks even further. And this is a win for the Palestinian people who are living under their boot. If the peace plan goes through to completion, Hamas members have zero future in Gaza, although I've said this before. I suspect a lot of them will head to Europe and go on the lecture circuit, where they'll be really popular. Loser number two, deterrence maximalists on both sides. If your position is unconditional surrender, either destruction of Hamas or from the river to the sea, push all the Jews away, a mutual halt plus exchanges is a setback to your worldview. Ceasefires blur the total victory narrative. In Israel, that weakens far-right parties. Among Hamas's external amplifiers, it kind of punctures the idea that perpetual escalation is a winning strategy. Reality forces compromises. And I would not be surprised if there are a lot of leaders in the Arab world who are going, Man, thank God this is over. We can finally trade with Israel. And we hate Hamas, and pretending to support them is a real pain for our government. Lesson number 3, loser number 3, the Houthis. Their maritime attacks in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and Red Sea were kind of branded as solidarity with Gaza. If Gaza is quiet and a ceasefire is in effect, the pretext erodes. Now they're just pirates. And that kind of invites a broader, more coordinated pushback, naval, economic, diplomatic. They can escalate elsewhere, maybe, but the justification window for attacking ships just narrowed today. The biggest problem with the Houthis is irrelevance. Loser number 4 is Russia's narrative space. Moscow's global line is kind of like Washington can't manage crises. A visible U.S. brokered outcome, however fragile, kind of cuts against that message. Russia's going to call it temporary. They're going to get their bots running on this, but a rival banking diplomatic credit is still a loss in the information space, right? Russia also has a lot of bot accounts that suddenly have no more purpose. A lot of money and time was spent into influencing public opinion, creating chaos, and Trump just destroyed all that with a stroke of a pen. So those bots are going to be repurposed, or some of them might fade into oblivion, because if nobody listens to you because your subject matter isn't relevant anymore, you're going to have a lot of trouble repurposing that specific bot. Loser number 5, pro-Hamas influencers and campus activists. This kind of goes in conjunction with the bots. It can be safe to say that very few of the activists you saw on American campuses who were supporting Hamas terrorists got this idea from reading a book. They got it from TikTok. They got it from the internet. There is a bright line between advocating for Palestinian rights, which is totally legitimate, and justifying hostage taking as a strategy or romanticizing terrorists, putting on that keffiyeh and pretending you're a freedom fighter. The latter kind of loses altitude when reunion footage dominates screens and disarmament de-radicalization kind of enters the fray here. Some of these people will pivot to reconstruction and rights. That's probably sustainable. The accounts and the people who are kind of built on glorifying coercion will find themselves out of alignment with the facts on the ground. Also note that a lot of these pro-terrorist supporters are probably going to have a hard time getting professional jobs in the near future. There are databases out there which use facial recognition to match protesters with names. Take a wild guess how I know this. I am a software engineer. And, if I worked at HR, at a law office, or a bank, especially one that dealt with foreign clients, Jewish clients, Israeli clients, or I had Jewish or Israeli employees, I would definitely check the names of anyone I'm about to hire against the names of protesters in that database. Because failing to do so could put you at risk of a lawsuit if one of your newly hired employees hates Jews and does something inappropriate or says something inappropriate to your clients or employees. It's just easier not to hire these people at all than to take the risk of them causing a lawsuit from one of your employees who says this person discriminated against me. But there's always McDonald's. I hear they'll hire anybody. Loser number 5 is the IDF. IDF, you say? Yeah. I say that because this conflict revealed some major holes in IDF training and doctrine. Below brigade level, to a man, these dudes perform pretty well. But I would seriously look at just firing people at brigade and above, because these dudes were fighting the wrong war. And I'm going to get into that. I'm going to do a video about lessons learned in this conflict soon. So if you're IDF, either Air Force, Army, or Navy, send me an email with 3 things. What went right for you, what went wrong, and what you guys think you can do to improve. I'm going to compile that into a video. Don't send me anything classified. I don't want to see that stuff. Just generally, what went right, what went wrong, what we can do to improve. Loser 6 is Iran. Iran always backed proxy militias because it was cheap and because it worked so well. Because of that, they kind of neglected their Air Force and their missile defenses. I think they thought that the proxies were the deterrent, and if a foreign government ever attacked Iran and tried to bomb Iran, Iran would just unleash terrorists onto their nation. So it's sort of like mutually assured destruction. The problem with the proxies is that once you don't have proxies anymore, you don't have a deterrent. Iran essentially lost Hamas because Hamas was engaged with Israel. Then they lost Hezbollah, first to the pager attack that attrited them, followed by an Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon, which gutted Hezbollah. And then Iran lost Syria because Assad was partially supported by Hezbollah. Now, once the missiles that were going to Hezbollah and being fired at northern Israel, once those missiles stopped coming through Syria, Israel was pretty much clear to execute the 12-day air war against Iran. And the B-2 strikes against Iran from America were the cherry on top. Now Iran is fresh out of friends, their air defenses are gutted, their air force is attrited. Even Russia can't help them. China's not going to sell them weapons because China needs every single missile it can get for Taiwan. So honestly, Iran is the biggest loser in all this. All right, so what changed and what didn't? Well, the borders didn't move, capabilities didn't vanish, but leverage kind of shifted. Washington, Doha, Cairo, they kind of banked this diplomatic credit that can be spent immediately on verification and humanitarian access. The IDF bought operational time without conceding strategic aims. Hamas spent its most powerful bargaining chip to survive, at least in the near term. Its military freedom of action is essentially finished. And ultimately, they will likely become irrelevant until they go on the lecture circuit. A lot of college kids in America just totally ruined their lives. Hardliners on both sides lost a narrative attitude, and the Houthis' justification for existing is weaker. And finally, Russia lost a talking point, which couldn't happen to a better country. What didn't change is the core political dispute, the question of governance of Gaza and whether any actor will accept a sustainable security architecture that protects civilians on both sides. I don't know if Fatah, who runs the West Bank, will have any kind of say in that, but that's kind of the next fight, and that's going to be fought with clipboards and manifests as much as this one has been fought with rifles. All right. AUSA is today. I got to get going. Thank you guys so much for watching.
In the modern age of progress and preparedness, one thing separates the professional from the amateur: appearance. That's why forward-thinking Americans choose Bunker Branding Apparel, the official uniform of those who get things done. Each shirt is precision engineered and field tested under rigorous conditions such as extended YouTube filming operations, Substack editorial duty, and the occasional internet argument, designed for comfort, durability, and undeniable sense of tactical cool. So remember, citizens, when you're defending democracy, refueling freedom, or simply mowing the strategic lawn, Bunker Branding keeps you mission ready, wrinkle-free, and unmistakably American.